She's in a hospital bed in the dining room. I'm in the next room, looking at her in a baby monitor. The light reflects in her slit of an eye. It gleams. She nods in answer to one question and then no response. It's a ghostly little image, grainy, black and white, shot in the dark. My companion, my dying lover. The future is a mental cramp. Tonight I had the intense frustration of yearning for her companionship, her thoughts, her humor, her taste. I thought, it is stopping now, our lived relationship. She is still here, but she is slipping away. When will the future stop being a hostile force? Her sister, Candy, told me this story about Angie's last text. It was garbled and misspelled, but it was something about it would happen tomorrow. Candy called her and they talked on the phone. Angie explained that she was dead. She was already dead. This was soon after her mother Peggy died. Candy just asked questions. How were Megan and Reese dealing with this? Oh, I'm helping them, she said. You know, I was a counselor. Have you seen Mom? Candy asked. No, but I'm working on it, she replied. We have these bodies. We drag them around. They exist beside and through us. But what do they mean, really? When Angie told me that she thought she was dead, she said that there, in that afterlife place, there was no gender. What was that like, I asked. It was a relief, she said. July 2nd, 2017, 12:15 in the morning. Today, Angie was very quiet and not eating. I went on a walk in the evening and brought back a blackberry, juicy and sweet, and a rose I picked from the hedge in front of the house with the French garden and fountain across from McKinley Park. When I came home, I rubbed the blackberry across Angie's teeth, and that seemed to wake her. Then she ate half a banana and drank milk. I put the rose on her pillow. Reese fell asleep next to her. He said, I love you, Mom. I was on the other side, cuddled up. She ran her hand up and down my arm. She murmured something about animal spirits, and I said, yes, I have always loved your animal spirits. You have such animal spirits. She said, she is roused by her animal spirits. She has strong animal spirits. She talked about herself as she, as if she is beginning to separate from herself. July 6, 2017. Night 1, without my love in the world. Excuse me. First she was warm, then as the hours passed, she became cool. I was frightened when I kissed her cheek. It looked so familiar, but felt and was other. Her deep chill, the blood pooling in her back, her stiffening fingers. She had gone, flown, where? Just now I woke up with anguish and walked around the house, dazed with sleep. I looked in on the dining room with the empty hospital bed. I felt her absence keenly and mysteriously. I went to the window because I thought I heard birds, and there was a glimmer of light on the horizon. I realized it was dawn, and there were birds. Their songs floated in a lovely mass, cool cooing and burbles and sharp calls. A soft breeze seemed to lean against me. I recognized all this as the place where Angie had gone. That thought flowed over me like a gentle wind. Charlotte Joko Beck says, joy is exactly what is happening, minus our opinion of it. Tonight I remembered with something like pleasure the final bathing of her beautiful white-haired pussy, the lips which hang down, which she wondered at. She thought that they either hung down or what, I don't remember. She thought there were two types of pussy. I bathed her, perhaps with Reese or my sister, and it felt fine somehow. I felt a joy in her body, now relaxed and deaf, but it was still warm, and so it felt like my lover. I dressed her in a dark cobalt blue shirt. I had just bought her and some dark gray black pants. I put her beret on and the witch's cord decorating her neck. The bones in her face seemed more prominent, and her bones were lovely. July 10th, 2017. People say a relationship is work. Ours was like a thrown pot that had been smoothed by both our hands. It was a pleasure to continually open to her, to turn to each other, to untie the knots, to return with confidence to the peace and comfort of our connection. I have a t-shirt hanging in my closet. I snatched it away from the washing. I wanted to keep it with her smell. Yes, her smell. She always loved my smell, and I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't think I loved her smell. But of course I did. I do. I would put my head on her shoulder by her neck and smell her. A dusty, Swedish smell. Very mild, delicate, in that it could be distant, and yet it was not. It was intimate. It was the closest thing in the world. Angie declined for months. She couldn't see, lost her balance, lost her muscles, wasted, then she lost memories, short and long term, skills, toothbrushing, using the fork, then the ability to think and speak and to swallow, God, endless. So of course she had to die. I kept arguing with death. I kept saying, this far and no farther, but it kept coming, relentless. I felt her love as this great, massive thing, no matter what else faded away. It seemed even stronger and more beautiful. It was only at the very end that I didn't see those lights in her eyes. And I think they were still there, submerged in the final moments. She kept gasping for breath until I was there, until recently. July 11th, 2017. Today, a witnessed cremation at Pacific Interment in Emeryville. At 11 a.m., we went into the chapel, and there she was. Does a person own their own corpse? Angie's corpse. She looked peaceful, but unlike herself. Her once plump face looked drained. It appeared narrower and more sculpted. Her body wasn't personal. It seemed much like a casing or a shed skin. We stayed there 15 minutes and then moved into the crematorium room. The man pointed to the button on the oven, and I pushed it. A grinding sound of wheels as the box moved towards the opening, a source of fierce heat and blaring noise. My sister chanted her prayers with her friend. She held a book with Sanskrit and translation, syllabic sounds in English. I stood behind her, and Reese and I held hands. The ceremony was to support the spirit in traveling through Bardo to their next destination. During the whole thing, I felt her near me, a spirit coiling in my lap, around my torso, affectionate and playful. I felt very stable. Afterwards, I commented to Larry that there was a conflict between wanting to stay and a soul that travels to rebirth. And he said something surprising and interesting. He said that if there are spirits and souls, that we can't know what they are like. They won't be modeled on us. So Angela's spirits may be multiple and follow different paths. Bob told Reese, that was a take no prisoners funeral. July 13th, 2017. I have developed a skill through all this, an ability to go into a trance with a question and come back with some sort of answer. The answers often have a satisfying if mysterious quality. This one came to me in the throes of Angie's decline. I can't remember exactly which awful thing had me terrified, but I did one of these trances because of my fear, and the message I got was bracing. Angie is okay, you are okay, and this is normal. This helped me relax for some reason. Today I did another trance because I felt stricken with the prospect of the loss of Angie's love. It hurt like hell, and it seemed like it would hurt like that for my whole life. The trance wisdom was simply that her love is still here. It hasn't disappeared. That shook me out of my mood and also made me look at this situation a little differently. I have been with her so long and so deeply that her love has entered the structure of my being. I am a host. Reese also. We are her material expression. My mind is prone to mistakes. I believe in the forms I experience, but they are misleading. The Buddhists believe nothing disappears, and if you look deeply, you see its transformation. August 2nd, 2017. Today, Reese's 24th birthday. I gave him a Viking amulet from 900 AD, a duck's foot. It's strange but perfect. He picked it out. Now he is out doing karaoke. But I woke up feeling twisted, and this morning I had a meltdown. Some disappointment related to his birthday. Reese had to tell me to stop. He called Bob and fixed it, and we had our nice party. Although through it all, I felt the raw sewage of grief under my surface. August 3rd, 2017. I've been thinking about what I wrote yesterday. He called Bob and fixed it, and we had our nice party. All through it, I felt the raw sewage of grief under my surface. Grief as sewage, why did that feel so right? As inaccurate. Today, when the grief stirred, it felt like a sickness, even a sickness of the bowels, tightness across the face, unrest in the gut, breathlessness. Today, before I left for work, I had to shit, and it made me feel sick, repulsed, like something out of control and wrong was about to happen. I was about to throw something out of my body. I had a moment of worry, as if I was about to shit my pants. At the moment of worry, I realized this worry is not uncommon for me. It's a reason I prefer to shit before I go to work. Defecation has an edge of nausea, desperation, and violence. I thought about that in relation to my grief. It's shocking to think that the purpose of grief is to turn our love to shit. And that's not it, but it's a part of it. Eating and shitting turns food into muscle, bone, blood, heart, love, sleep, life. Shitting is the excrement. It's not the point of eating, just the consequence. Grief, this sickness that comes over me, it makes me cry. And after a bout of tears, I feel clear and not happy, but calm. I wonder if this shitty grief will turn our love and our decades together into a kind of nourishment. It would be transformed into memory. It will be entering my life forever, but through memory. One thing this does is persuade me that I should try to allow the grief to roll through me, roll with its thunder and cramping, its slippery dive into helplessness and agony. Just to let that happen, let it take me. I am shitting something. I am not losing anything I need. And then the last part of this is actually a transcription. This has been a year. So my father's demented and is in a memory care facility, and I had this amazing conversation with him, and I just wrote it down. So this is called My Father and Dementia. It's basically all him, except where I say one thing. I'm afraid I live in a world of spectacle. I can't escape the conclusion that the world is not on our side. I can't escape the conclusion that skepticism is the prudent position, though I'd like to think otherwise. It's so thrilling to have something that breaks through fear and leaves room for hope, and something more than hope. I don't know what to say. What is it that we feed upon that creates hope? I don't know. Hope is always there, but how much is it beyond justice, the sense of hope? I don't know. At a moment like this, I don't see anything beyond hope. At a moment like this, hope is all we have. At a fleeting moment like this, you just don't know how to find grounds for hope. It is not visible on the horizon. Listen, sweetheart, this was just a wonderful surprise. Wonderful to have your voice appearing out of the ether. I'd like to pick up the phone sometime and just find that you are there. But the truth is, that is not something I can detect. The truth is, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and find myself feeling that there are grounds for hope I can't even articulate. Maybe that is the least we can do. Hope that we are right. The fact you made this call says to me that I can call and surprise you sometime. I love you, sweetheart, just as much as ever.
That we just take a moment and kind of let all this be here and just have a moment of silence to kind of honor these stories of loss that we are bearing witness to. So I'm just going to actually invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Feel your feet on the floor and your tushy and your back in your chair, and feel the support of that. And just take 3 deep breaths, breathing up really fully, kind of hovering there at the top for just a moment, and then breathing out really fully and really emptying out your lungs, and then hovering at the bottom, and then just doing that another couple of times, and just letting the silence just be an honoring and just reconnecting with our humanity here for a moment. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes again, and we'll move forward in the flow of time. So Bob actually shared with me his good news that the New York Review of Books Press NYRB Classics will be republishing Marjorie Come. And so I really wanted to share that with you. But here is Aaron Shuren's beautiful Valentine to Bob. Bob Glück's nipples are like peonies, he writes. If you touch them, they open in widening circles like stories. At first blush, the sensation is local. Any of the lovers for whom his books are named or renamed. Then the vibrations spread, because Bob feels the expansive pleasure of lying in bed in a shaft of light in San Francisco, his home. What is pleasure? He brings in friends, students, family to unravel the sensation. Private pleasure is public measure. Bob's nipples become the subject of endearments, then gossip, then new narrative in full bloom. Hello, communal presence.
I want to thank you and thank Eric, Lynn, and Daniel. I'm sorry. I'm
Chris.
And Chris. And I will. Well, I've had a tremendous time here. I just wrote a book report, basically, just following the description of this panel that I was given, because I think I am the good girl of the group. The topic of this panel was strategized, I suppose, to make it easy on us panelists, and perhaps also hard to decline. At least that's how I feel. I detest writing papers, because whenever I sit down to write, I start at zero. And it's really too much of psychic expense. Instead of selecting ideas from a head full of ideas, I see impossibilities. In fact, I am not really interested in my subject. It doesn't hold my attention until I find a way to place it beyond my capacity to understand and articulate. G.H. says it exactly. What was happening to me? I shall never be able to understand it, but there must be someone who can. And I shall have to create that someone who can inside myself. So that brings me to Clarice Lispector's The Passion According to G.H., which I'm curious Has anybody read it in this audience? Okay. A book that I was reading for about a year. You could say I am still reading it since I stopped about 3 pages before the end last May. And only finished it yesterday because I thought it would be too cute, the bad kind of cute, to report on a book that I hadn't finished. I read thoroughly before abandoning it, every sentence at least twice. I felt compelled to underline and to make notes, mostly ideas generated by Lispector's text for the book I am writing now about Ed. The Passion According to G.H. finished me more than I finished it. A drastic book, a take no prisoners book, ungainly, with a nervous, laughable plot, dubious psychological insight. G.H. can stand for genero humano, humankind. Even more dubious social critique, amazing sentences. Exactly the kind of book I love and aspire to. The novel may be a literary form that conveys empathy, which is a kind of demand. But this is a drastic novel, and Lispector says, this book expects nothing of anyone. It's a book that doesn't exactly come together except to wonder at its own disjuncture. I used Lispector's book to set the bar in About Ed, a novel and my version of an AIDS memoir. By setting the bar, I mean that there was little distraction in The Passion According to G.H. from the mighty sentences that convey Lispector's truth. In my writing classes, I used to show the students some of the Gnostic Gospels, especially the Gospel of Thomas. Sometimes I asked Bruce to visit the class and make a presentation about them. Then I gave the class a horrid assignment. Write the truth. Tell me what the truth is. In a sense, it's an extra literary problem. I left it to them to decide what truth, but they had to respond in full sincerity, without irony or parody. I wanted them to have that experience. Lispector could have been responding to this assignment. I don't really want to make a book report, but I do need to tell you a little about the book so we can be on the same page. So, Clarice Lispector was a Brazilian writer, a Jew, who lived from 1920 to 1977. She became middle class, a wife and mother, and she wrote about that life from the age of 19 to the end. She was also a journalist, and she wrote children's books. The Passion According to G.H. was published in 1964. It's from the second half of her work, which is more extreme than the first. Like Gail Scott's heroines, Lispector's are often situated in one place, by an open window, say, or on the floor of the maid's room. The internal monologue is aimed at an absent you, or addressing an inner other, and sometimes the reader. I would compare The Passion of G.H. to Gail Scott's obituary in its daring sadness, its structure derived from the brokenness of experience. The setup of Lispector's book, addressing parts of the book in quotes to an absent lover, is not exactly credible, because the absent lover never stops being more than that. And the sections addressed to him are no different from the sections not addressed to him. He never steps forward. Meanwhile, Lispector's muscles through a series of epistemological problems to arrive at a spirituality that is akin to many things, George Bataille, Zen, but also all its own. Lispector weaves the chapters together by using the last lines of each chapter as a first line of the next chapter. Sometimes the result is interesting, more often exasperating, but it does emphasize the sentence rather than the paragraph. The maid has quit after 6 months. Her dark-skinned face already forgotten after one day, and GH takes it upon herself to venture into the maid's room, where GH has perhaps never been, in order to straighten it up. The room she finds is immaculate, but GH discovers that the maid hated her. At least GH imagines the maid hated her, and hated the very qualities that GH will abandon in that room: sensibility, taste, a talent for living, making arrangements of all kinds. GH deduces the maid's feeling from some outlines the maid did or didn't draw on the wall of a woman, a man, and a dog. This secondary plot is not developed or resolved. GH tries to hitch her spiritual progress to awareness of social evil, but it's only by proximity, like the maid's room, attached to the rest of the house, but never entered by her. GH comes to understand her own privilege, but when she is pushed to the brink, she abandons this notion without conflict to go further, to the discovery of a non-self, a non-personal spirituality. In the spotless room, a cockroach half emerges from a wardrobe, and GH crushes it with the wardrobe door so that its rear end is flattened by the door and its front half can look forward. Throughout the story, white gunk, the cockroach's guts, exude from a crack in its shell. GH is also pinned to the room, on the floor, held fast by the cockroach. GH contemplates that cockroach and works through versions of impurity. She begins to live in the present. Then she learns about the neutral, and with a jump in scale, sees the neutral world, and so should she be neutral to her own death or fate. Quote, and there is also at times the exasperation of the atonal, which is a profound happiness. Exasperated atonality is flight rising. Nature is exasperated atonality. Thus it was that worlds were formed. Atonality became exasperated. She is freeing herself from morality. In this context, she wants to know love and to be touched. She writes to her lover about tasting the salt in his tears. Perhaps this is a preview, eating the substance of the one that is sought. Silence comes next, that of the neutral cockroach without a name for love or suffering. Its only differentiation in life is that it has to be either male or female. Quote, I had been thinking of it only as female, since whatever is caved in at the middle must be female. With an address to her mother, GH expels fear, and with it the desire to be helped. Now she must let go of her lover's hand in order to return with a love that does not include self or even the organic, does not include, accrete, or self-enlarge. Only in an inexperienced rippling in an unexpected rippling of the lines, only in an anomaly in the uninterrupted continuity of my culture did I for an instant experience life-giving death. That's like the plenary, isn't it? That swerve. A cockroach, here's another quote, a cockroach is larger than I am because its life is so given over to him that it comes from the infinite and moves towards the infinite unperceivingly. It never becomes discontinuous. And that word discontinuous really seems to come from Georges Bataille, and his idea of being continuous with the world. On page 89, someone new appears. Someone I really have to think about. Someone I don't want. Who collects the ideas so hard to reach and grasp and gives them a non-face. God. I was afraid of God's face. I was afraid of my final nakedness on the wall. Now that we see that the ideas being gathered are demonic in a Blakeian kind of reversal, for the unexpressive is diabolical. If that person has the courage to leave her feeling behind, she discovered that huge life of extremely busy silence, the same sort that exists in the cockroach, the same as in the stars, the same as in herself. The demonic is prior to the human, and if that person sees that newness, she sings herself as though she saw God. Lispector resituates suffering and even martyrdom inside the human, insofar as the human is an animal and outside of God, but they are things to offer God as unwanted gifts. This is annoying to me. There is too much about God. God is described more than her lover. God is greater than goodness and its beauty. I fear that not even God comprehends, even Christ himself. God is what exists. I am afraid she is really serious about God. I prefer for God to exist as a ghost does, part of the plot so that we can feel and think about certain things. Perhaps as ecstasy that does not have culmination. What I speak to God about has to make no sense. If it makes sense, it's because I err. With God comes hell. Hell is the mouth that bites and eats living flesh that has blood, and one eaten howls with delight in his eye. Hell is like pain, like pleasure of matter, with the laughter of delight of tears. As the laughter of delight tears run in pain. God is a profound abyss that reabsorbs everything, a grandiose indifference. It's odd. I feel betrayed, as though GH was unfaithful to me. We were doing just fine without God. What do we need him for? I restrained myself from throwing the book across the room. I was taught not to let a book touch the floor in case God's name was written in it. And was it ever? Though self-irony did not keep me from throwing Mrs. Dalloway across a different room at an earlier date. For a month or so, I avoided looking at the book, where it sat by my bed. Then I wondered, must I feel betrayed in order to recognize myself in a story of faith? I suppose in any ghost story, even one about the Holy Ghost, at least the least important thing is my belief in ghosts. The most important things are what we need from the story: terror, the unwanted knowledge of the ease with which the sentient and inorganic change places. Perhaps there are two kinds of belief. The first is undoubtedly bound up in a story. The second attempts to negate story itself. Of course, we assume the latter is more authentic because it is impossible to achieve with a conscious mind, or let's say a finite mind. All sudden understanding is, in the last analysis, the revelation of a clear non-understanding. Obviously, a person needs whole arsenals to repress the knowledge that the world wants me to become the world. Rejecting the knowledge that Ed died was self-preservation in the purest form, that Ed had stopped being human, animal, cellular, living, organic. Lispector's vision of the future is very close to Ed's. In 100,000 years, we finally won't be what we feel and think anymore. We shall have something that more closely resembles an attitude than an idea. We shall be living rather than manifesting itself directly, unmindful of words, going beyond the always grotesque thinking. And Lispector cautions me to be wary of beauty. Probably it's not going to work. It's a distraction, and she chastens me. Don't reject the tedium of love, the drabness of illness. Perhaps I have prepared for Lispector's book all my life, the morbidly good girl scrubbing my smudged fingerprints off the void. When I was a lot younger, for a brief time, my life plan was to become a Catholic saint. I wonder if my almost complete isolation reduces a little the pretentiousness of my plan. I started reading mystical texts in preparation. These texts were written by women for the most part. I took for granted they would be more receptive to the divine, whatever that is, and more porous in general. I reasoned saints have to come from somewhere, even Cleveland Heights, which might equal a biblical backwater like Bethlehem, and certainly needed an infusion of spirit. Being Jewish was a stumbling block that grew so large it became an impasse. But here is Lispector in the glory of her objection and ascendancy, finding a kind of salvation. Her book has the feel of a 15th century mystical tract, long on meditation and objection, short on plot. G.H. says, I am the priestess of a secret I no longer know. Didn't G.H. retreat to her cell, confining herself during the course of her meditation? Just like the anchoress Julian of Norwich, the title of Julian's book, The Showing of Love, or Revelations of Divine Love, could be a translation of The Passion according to G.H. The object of G.H.'s meditation is not the hyper-reality of God's wounds, but the wounds of a cockroach. For redemption must be in the thing itself, and the thing itself would be putting into my own mouth the white paste from the cockroach. Oh no, she's going to eat the cockroach. She swallows the guts exuding from the wound as a sacrament, a weird vitalism, a non-transubstantiated materialist host. Consuming is an ancient and common way of becoming. The plot embarrasses me. It's laughable. Our narrator spends the day on the floor of the maid's room, coming to the conclusion after long hours of existential riffing that she should eat part of a cockroach. Yet I read it on the edge of my seat like a ghost story, a horror story screaming with awareness. Honestly, you have to wonder how the Spectre decided this cockroach-eating story would be a good idea. At what point did she recognize herself in the story and see that the story could accept everything she needed to put in it? Her loss, her despair, her faith. That she could succeed through the power of her sincerity. Even as the Spectre makes the limit of language a theme, she seems to believe that language can convey experience through her strength and sincerity. But I'm going to tell you something that must be said. I'm going to tell you what I have never told you before. She is fearless, or she is afraid, and she goes ahead anyway. She is not afraid of being pretentious, of writing badly, of writing nonsense, of indescribabilia. Her sincerity may be her faith in language, which I like to consider when I think about her. She ends her book with an envoi to language itself, about the power of language to fail. I don't understand what I am saying, therefore I adore. I think about Lispector's faith in language. During eras where the paradigm is changing, as it is now, people often feel weak before language and representations. This was true of the late 14th and 15th centuries, for example. People literally did not know how to understand representations, where they would stop. People felt weak before images. If a married woman wore a white dress, Was she a whore, a lawler, a deceiver of the people? Did it mean civil war was at hand, or the end of the world? Then we had better burn her. When I encounter shrill and toxic discourse on social media, I am reminded of the 15th century, and also how far we have come from the specter's confidence and trust.
Could I have a microphone person come up? Daniel, maybe? So, I'm just going to say, I'm going to bend this down for him, but if you want to do anything about this, is it out of commission? Thanks, yeah, stay here. Okay. Thank you, Bob. You got a really good grade. You did such good homework. You rose to the occasion. So Brandon Brown wrote this about Bruce Boone. To read Bruce Boone's work is to become an accomplice to a decades-long study of time. This study is likewise a study of friendship, sex, history, spiritual practice, breath, movies, aliens, and the gods, and this is a highly partial list. The future penetrates the present in Bruce's works, offering us a glimpse of a better world through the expanded universe of pleasures and disasters of the present. In his classic novel, Century of Clouds, Boone writes, I hope the socialist life to come will include soccer tort and cafe meat schlag. Can't you just taste it coming? You want to just do a test?
Hi, how's this going?
How's
Is
it
this
going?
working? Can you hear me? No? Okay. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just like to look and see who's there. Thank you. I'm an alien. That was my subject. You get to choose for this panel of Porous.
Yes.
Porous. So that of the very nicely put Brandon Brown quote, I guess the alien is the theme of me today. And again, trying to err a little on the good side like Bob, I did a little homework, and one of the assignments I think was like, what are your literary sources or for your thematic material or something like that. Is there anything? I watch History Channel, and I watch, you know, when you go below CNN, whatever they are, all those things, they have a lot of loopy kind of like, I watch the astronomy and then sometimes it's kind of more astrology, and then it's fun, and then the nature and science turns into Loch Ness Monster, or those are all sort of really kind of more of the sources than anything literary actually. And I guess I should say, do a quick note about more life sources, because they enter in also. Certainly, quite a few decades of Buddhism have informed kind of in the last 10 years of doing mainly poetry, but some other stuff, and there's some precedents too. Cosmology is really big, and it's kind of like a form of Buddhism, emptiness, blah, blah. You know, the Mahayana, the doctrine of dualism, well, all form is emptiness, all emptiness is form. Got it? Okay, so that's big themes, and it's, I guess in the West, you know, if the Greeks were working on the one and the many, it's kind of the same thing. We say time and eternity, it's kind of the same thing. It's really no biggie. But that's been kind of on my mind, so it kind of started out in kind of meditational or mystical fashion, I guess. And it's kind of evolved in different selections, and I read something last night, and it has evolved, and there are a lot of monsters up there, Gnostic monsters and actual, you know, gamma rays, and it's not innocent territory up there. So what does that stand for, kind of figuratively, if you're thinking about it? Well, on a personal level, my life, mein kleines Leben hat ein Ende. Who's that guy that wrote that one thing that's so famous? That's the name of it. My little life has an end, and box time. But then more and more, you know, for how many mornings this week when I got up, seeing I could actually look at the sun and not damage my eyes because of the dropping particulate matter from the forest fires that are finally, probably in the next 10 or 15 years, I figure, going to take out most of California's forests. So a lot of things is loss. There's really a lot of loss. So the macro loss, we could take these terms we started with, form and emptiness, or the one and many, or, you know, many ways to put it. Continuity and discontinuity is another. We could write the one term real big, it's the loss of nature. It's pretty dismaying. And so that's kind of what all this is about, to go back to sources that I've been about for 10 years or interested in. Now, I was supposed to read an essay I wrote decades ago about Robin Blazer because some intimations come in. The printer didn't work. I am not good with tech. The only thing even close to it I could find was, from No Apologies, Kevin Killian edited this version, this issue, from, oh God, it must be 30 years ago. And it's an essay on Robin Blazer. And the only quote that I could find to start with says, "I'm trying to be faithful to my assignments," was, I don't know what I was talking about before, something about Robin, and I get into Jack Spicer, and then I say, "You've entered the field of the completely dark and sacred." Two more alternate couplings for names that you could use, nominal designations of two factors of yang and yin that we have to consider. Entered the dark and sacred and found it literally nothing, a nothingness. Was it worth it to hold for the dark against community? Obviously, there are arguments to be made on each side. But is the dilemma and the opposition inevitable? What if you have to choose between them? Now, that's not the quote I wanted. Actually, the quote I wanted, I'll just tell you, it's from Jack Spicer, where he contrasts the private and the public. And for Spicer, I think you can kind of trace a trajectory where the public is really becoming, as it is with me, cosmological, which is on its way to becoming Buddhist emptiness or just loss, shit. So what I wanted to do was just read a little bit of something I wrote whenever, and then tweaked whenever, and it appeared in Tripwire 11 in 2016. Okay? So I'll read a little of this, and since my topic was UFOs and aliens and stuff like this, you can kind of see the figurative function for the kind of philosophical outline I just sketched coming in its figuration of the cosmological and of close encounters and blah blah. Okay? So listen up. It's from a thing. It's been through many titles, but this is the one I have here, so I might as well say it. He sleeps with the angels, parentheses, pink sperm. The meter was ticking, but the taxi wasn't going anyplace. Word by word, I looked through them. They poked holes through my rubber masks. Now, is there less? I asked. I said that teen angst paid off wealth for me, but now old and bored, etc. Two holes started shaking, and I noticed changing. Empty voices, please listen up. Alongside our moving Corolla in Stetsons, agents from cosmic powers wearing jeans, cowboy boots. What gasped for a straight shot up I-5? These disguised old boys, shades, faux Stetsons, Archon agents in drag. As a monorail ran before us, we couldn't think clearly. Falsification is minimalism by speed. Frances Farmer did her best, but against the windshield, the moans of Seattle's pre-I-5 rainy tarmacs, every woman's sentence, every word, isn't it a heart-shaped box given to me? It sounds like those old leaves blowing over Lake Washington. Oh, sorry, I mean, the night I died. I'm all apologies, sperm face. You buy and sell my records, but here we are now, entertain us. Damn, you probably heard that thing already. Damn, like I like it. It sounds in my head. The Corolla is in its lane, the pickup truck with the good old boys, crossing lanes to push us off I-5. I'm all apologies, authorities, Stetsons. Tears wiped clean again, and again by the windshield wiper. Oh boy, falling asleep now, Mrs. Bean. Cuddly cigarette blanket burns, but who can claim clear awareness after shooting up with heroin? I'm trying to do my best, which is to fall back to sleep. I dream of monorails running around the enemy, space aliens, Space Needle broadcasting false messages verified by a government in their pay. Too bad, so sad. Realization is a memorial service. And then you wake up. Moosh, moosh, I can't hear. A window wiper for my ears. To clear the air, I lie to you now. And when stars begin to plunge, is it different then? Is it? It only hurts real bad the first time. I know that. Nothing is really in disguise. You just look is all and see. What's there is not what's not. Easy as pie. On a daily basis, love, repeated Kurt, until I believe. Still do. Like any sissy, you have to love animals. I do. Aliens and sin go together like some heavy stone falling, dead meteors, comets streaking our lives. Sometimes flip-flop, flip-flop, goes the monotonous windshield wipers, and sentences no longer make sense following other ones. Why? Can I just die? Hey, I did that, right? What's good for you is bad for you, Courtney. Do you think, girl like me or the aliens? Give me my blanket back. I will never belong to the Watchtower Society. I don't believe in waking up. Just sleep, sleep. It's so minimal. But when all the fat's cut away, do I know they'll really be neat? Okay, maybe. I just say like I hope, maybe. Denominations and powers, thrones, they rule like archons. Dumb down and they'll never see you. Dumb down and your little girl blanket girl. Once I dumb down emotions, now I'm working on paragraphs, sentences, words, even morphemes like even. I hate myself and want to die. Too bad, said the pink light to the sissy. Frances Farmer asked me, how many windshield wipers will you need to cover up them tears? And she went ahead and told me, well, just grow a pair of them, Kurt. And I hung my head, forgetting so much. Did I get my start at Olympia in a community college? And aren't I just an animal like all of us? We are slaughtered daily for your breakfast sausages. Americans kill animals under alien supervision. The continuous slaughter of them never stops. While Courtney wears furs. I guess I'm a loser. Smear me. You'd like that, wouldn't you? I know. And music emanating from distant cosmic planets, I remain, and whatever there's heartbreak in the world, there was I once, there am I still, there will I ever be, like pink sperm, falling on upturned faces, glad with decrypted joy, at last. Our faces to the wind. Fall, you starry come things. You wouldn't ever fail, the moans and groans in music transformed to joy forever. Through me, I'll be there always. What about your being so stupid? Like you once said, baby. Nothing but Bean, I told her back. You know the daughter, Bean. Look for me in your heart, a child like Bean. The decryption of the Aberdeen encryption was slow and steady. A windshield wiped off my rain on I-5, and Seattle discovering Frances Farmer, animals to be loved like myself. In the last century, there was Hank, with slide guitar mimicking the heartbreak that will only grow. I put on a rubber mask given me by the cosmic powers, their alien troops falling from above like tears in rain. Tears, say love, or love, cat. It smooches my vision now. The mosh pit mushiness of it can do that. Get rid of Courtney, Kurt, she's no good. Babe, you think I got to be good to make you happy then? Think again, my sweet, think. Too many teardrops, too much pain in my belly, even heroin can't kill. Is there only sleep left for me now? And is love just another way to go to sleep? I wondered sometimes. Flatline. Suddenly. This is Rome. Some ICU. When I wake up hurting, what? I say mulingly, more pain. The voices wake up, get rid of her. Kurt, she's bad. Oh, so bad for you. Get rid of the bitch. What a cunt. Or maybe the sentences read differently. In deepest flatline, dark sleep and quiet away from the noise, sentences distort the things, ours, perhaps, morphemic fragments channeling down the ear canals on false pretenses. I don't know. Flip-flop go the sentences. Can you see yourself now? Each, begetting each, question the next, same with sentences, finish the song, you make another, it never ends, there's nothing but change. Maybe she is a bitch. I love you, Kurt, screamed by my fans. Still deceived, still encrypted by powers, but I feel more deeply with love, Courtney. There's only love, isn't there? Where in love is the deception of the alien screams I make with my music forever? I don't know. I guess I never will. I'm gonna quit.
So we have 6 precious minutes for your brilliant questions for our brilliant panelists.
Actually, we don't.
Oh, we don't. We're not.
Hey, listen.